Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded at North American Passive House Network's conference, Passive House for All, in June 2021 in New York City. In this, the 7th of 18 interviews we recorded amidst the hustle and bustle of the conference hall floor, I chat with In Cho of Cho Shield Studio. A couple quick thank yous before we get started. First, thank you to NAPHN for putting on the conference and for partnering with us on these interviews. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors who make everything we do at the Accelerator possible. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxtingui Architects, Glavel, Minotaur, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Rockwool North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsor is SIGA, and our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. So with that, please enjoy my interview with In. In, thank you so much for sitting down to talk. It's great. We were just joking because I assumed that we had met before because I've seen you on the screen so many times in the last 16 months. Right. But this is actually the first time we've been physically in the same space. So thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's so wonderful to see you and finally meet you in person.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
likewise.
Definitely. Yeah. And everyone here.
Yeah,
it's quite an amazing feat that the conference actually happened in this format. So I'm very grateful for being able to connect with everyone.
Yeah, me too. I'm very happy that NAPHN has done this and is blazing the trail again. You all blazed it last year with online only and some really creative approaches to that conference, and now we're seeing the same thing happening here, and maybe there are probably lots of learnings that will go on in terms of thinking about how we can replicate this over in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And no, I mean, it's just been the ability to bring the community together, including us even meeting today in person, and everyone just being very active about the whole Passive House process is just incredible. So it's definitely all been one big joyous community engagement, occasion.
Definitely. So let's start with, could you, I know a lot of people are familiar with you and your work, but for those who aren't, could you introduce yourself and the firm and your practice a little bit?
Okay. Well, okay. It's
just a little question I have
no
for you.
worries. My name is In Cho. First name In, preposition, it's my full name. I'm a registered architect in New York City and in many other states in the United States here, and also a certified Passive House designer, practicing for over 25 years, everywhere, doing all kinds of work, and primarily focused on doing sustainable, environmental and social sustainable designs practices. So when I was introduced to Passive House about maybe 8+ years ago, it really fed into everything that really meant something to me in what I do, and even more. Like, it really kind of fulfilled and completed the whole idea of what it means to do good, responsible architecture. So it started by me just worrying about how to deal with mold prevention in a wall system, and little did I know the impact that it would have on everything that I do, to the point where now we even, as you know, we educate students and really trying to popularize the idea of Passive House, because it's such an amazing, as you all know, as we all know, it's an amazing concept and principle. And on the one hand, it's so simple. So the more the people can understand this and embrace it, just even in just the general public, the more I think that it'll really benefit everyone's lives. So our mission today, joining everyone, including Passive House Accelerator, is to really proliferate these ideas as far and wide as possible, so that really, truly, we can, every individual act that gets made, small acts, it can really create the kind of big impact that we need as soon as possible. So that's really been my existence these days, doing architecture, supporting policies. We were involved in the 2020 Energy Code revision for New York City, trying to put and implement a lot of the Passive House standards to it, and it's getting up there closer to it, and then doing any kind of cultural exposure to Passive House, you name it, etc. And, Passive House Accelerator even talking. So it's really been a great, and we have the community, such as Passive House Accelerator, North American Passive House Network. I mean, we just have such an amazing community of organizations that are all doing the same mission and really working together. So that's been amazing. So that's all I do is just join the community in this effort.
Well, I mean, you're leading both by building and retrofitting amazing examples of a passive house out in the world, and then this really creative work that you do with kids and fusing the arts and storytelling so could you expand on that a little bit for I think powerful approach to getting the word out. So anyway, enough of me, please.
I mean, and in fact, this process started, just a few years ago in 2018, when in the same space at the North American Passive House Network Conference, and there was a group of us, many devoted architects, policymakers, industry leaders, and we're all having the same conversation about how do we spread this passive house knowledge. It's so important that it just goes out there, to create the impact that we need to help mitigate climate change, bring social equity, have a much healthier environment, environment people. And when we were having these discussions, of course, policy is so critical. And that's like the top-down approach. And then, of course, what we all as architects do, designing, building passive houses everywhere, that's equally critical, which I consider kind of like the mid-tier level. But then we were like, well, what about the grassroots level? Like, what about everything else? I mean, we are in this one room of really lucky, privileged people who are doing these things, but it's still not enough of an impact. How do we get it out to really the mainstream? How do we popularize this idea? So this is how it kind of came about. And then all of a sudden, this kind of like eureka moment happened and realized, what? We have to reach the mainstream. We got to reach the hearts of people. And, things like, well, if Taylor Swift can reach billions of, multi-million, viewers, how can we reach, the everyday lives of everyone? And so then somehow I just out of the blue, I started cold calling, public schools, thinking that, children really are the future. And therefore, how do we reach them? Because if they could know, if this becomes a cultural, not even knowledge, but just an existence of who they are, then we really can make a difference. So I started reaching out to public schools in New York City and proposing this idea of teaching the students the Passive House principles and really hoping for them to learn it and internalize it for the rest of their lives. And I remember when I was a student in New York City public schools, and there's a lot of technical classes that I have to say weren't the most fun or interesting. So maybe it didn't quite stay with me for the rest of my life. And I thought, well, how can I do it in a way where maybe we really could try to ensure that it will stay with them? So that's how the arts component came into being, to try to really make it fun.
Right.
And the next thing I know, it just took off from there. And really the teaching, we started live before the pandemic, and we started with Stuyvesant High School in New York City, which is a public high school. And we went to the classes, we were teaching them, and then they were doing a dance creation out of it, all on their own, using these wonderful props that it was a dance club, and then the pandemic occurred, and the whole program shut down, and the students were devastated. So because of that, somehow, as about a month into the pandemic, we just we said we can't give up. And so then, the students and us, we worked out an idea to create this remote format. And basically, it's all the students. They came up with the idea to do their individual dance pieces, and then one of the students edited it together and turned it into one coherent video.
Cool.
And then we approached the elementary school, public school in Brooklyn, and the principal embraced the idea, and we taught this 50-minute lesson on Passive House. From kindergarten to 5th grade.
Cool.
And then all the students did their projects at home. The parents videotaped the projects. And then, we just kind of put it together. And that became another project, and so on and so forth. And yes, and this past year we approached another high school in Bed-Stuy, and we taught them remotely. Everything was fully remote. And again, students are just loving these ideas. And what's really been interesting is that they love exploring it through the arts. And of course, there's no grades to go with it. So they, we always ask them, just do whatever seems most fun for you. And by doing that, they were really able to come up with some really really creative stuff that you and I probably, if we tried to get them to do something, they never would have come up with these ideas. So it really shows the brilliance of their creativity, and it's just so much fun that way.
Yeah, so that's so
So
cool.
and we hope to keep going with it, you know, and maybe
well,
one
I hope
day,
so,
and I really hope, you know, I'm trying to also have the community support in terms of trying to turn this into a curriculum for all schools, you know, and also to be able to train, to scale it up so that we can even train teachers to teach this in this way. And this way, you know, it's kind of like that ripple effect in the concentric that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then this way, everyone will start really understanding what Passive House is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the goal.
And so some of this is being, some of the recordings are being integrated into the conference presentation, yes?
Yeah, so basically I think there's 30-minute breaks between the different sessions. So they've been showcasing the student performances during that break. So I hope everyone gets to see a little bit of it at some point. Or you can also be online somewhere.
Yeah, totally.
So that'll be fun.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, what else would you like to share? What maybe like if there are any key insights that you heard today at the conference, or hopes that you have for the conference?
Yeah, I think basically, you know, I mean, the one thing that is just so inspiring about the Passive House community is that there are so many people who really care, you know, to do good in the world. And, you know, Passive House is just, it's a really wonderful vehicle within our built environment to really make a positive impact that not only has an environmental, physical aspect to it, but it also has ties to health, ties to social equity. And so it's such a wonderful tool that really can be spread wide. And I feel like both locally and globally, people are really doing a lot of great stuff together. And if there's anything that that I feel it's very inspiring is that if we continue to really work together as a community, you know, that I think this is the way in which we can continue moving forward to really make a difference, you know, and that sense of doing it together as a community is actually really critical. Because individually it's just so difficult, but together it really is like the power of one, you know, multiplied by millions, and next thing you know, you've got a huge movement. So I just, you know, and I hear it everywhere, you know, that everyone is really kind of enjoying this notion of partnerships, collaborations, you know, all of these awarenesses. And so I think what I leave is feeling inspired for us to keep going on in this path, you know, together. And I think that will really make some big changes, which we already have, but we'll continue to do so. So
well said. Well said. Well, thank you, Ian. I really appreciate this.
Thank you,
this
Zach.
talk. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And you guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Like seriously amazing. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast. On behalf of everyone here at the Passive House Accelerator, thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more on the Passive House podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye.